All right. Hey guys, thanks for being here. This is amazing. I'm Becky Krull. I'm a small animal veterinarian in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and we own two practices here. Rebecca just graciously asked me to come on here and start talking about a little bit about the destigmatization. I don't know if I can say the word anymore. Of mental health and the role it plays in our worlds and vet medicine and why we're talking about it, why we're not talking about it. And a little bit about my background is I have been a veterinarian for 15 years, and it was about 2016 when I started to hit that slump in my life when didn't really want to be a veterinarian anymore, when I had major burnout and compassion fatigue, and basically kind of had a come to Jesus moment where it was going to be, I either leave the practice of medicine and go do something else with my life, or I get my you-know-what together and find my way back to veterinary medicine. And I chose to find my way back, but it took a lot of work, the help of a life coach and her husband, who happens to be a psychotherapist. So not formal, I'll tell you, just like, in full transparency, I had huge blocks about therapy. People I know didn't do well in therapy. I didn't think it worked. I was maybe even ashamed to even say that I needed it. But as I started to go through the process, that's indeed what I was in and continue to do. Mental health therapy on a regular basis so that I can be the best me, so that I can be the best me for my clients, my family. And I get to just be me. I get to be authentic me. And I talk about it freely. I joke, it's not the greatest thing to go out in front of public and be like, yeah, I have a mental health problem. But really the things I share with everybody is like, oh yeah, that all sounds, I have that too. And so there's nothing to be ashamed of. And the more I can talk about it in vet med, the happier I am, because we all, I think, share a common theme, common problems, common whatever, and we all need the same help and work so we can live amazing lives.
Now, I'm going to be perfectly honest, and so is Dr. Coyle here. You don't see therapists or counselors or anything like that in our credentials. We are veterinary professionals that really want to help other veterinary professionals and veterinary team members be able to have these conversations and be able to find the solutions within your practice to help everybody when they need it. So that is a big word, destigmatization.
What's interesting? I was going to share this with you guys, and I think I felt this. So I had a doctor's appointment yesterday, and as they're asking me all these questions, the final questions they asked me were, do you often feel sad or lonely? Do you have thoughts of, bad thoughts? Are you depressed? And I answered no to all of them. But then I asked the nurse, what happens if I say yes to these? And I put myself in the place of, like, I'm comfortable talking about it, but think of all the people who are not comfortable talking about it and who are not even going to share that with their own physician. And I think even in our realm here, we don't talk about it with our staff members. I wasn't even talking to my husband about it. He did not realize the low I was in, because I was just pushing through, trying to make things happen and stay afloat. Because there is depression that runs in his side of the family and my side of the family. So to even say the words was like scary, that something wasn't right. And it's a shame, because I think a lot of us suffer in silence.
Most definitely. So then we get to move to solutions, because that's where Absolutely. We are now. I've been very fortunate that I have worked with the Colorado Veterinary Medical Association and the Colorado Association of Certified Veterinary Technicians, and I was even a part of the Denver Area Veterinary Medical Society. But what I learned during all of those wonderful board meetings, because they're hugely educational, they have people that really do care for the pets and the people and the product and the services we provide, that there was a peer assistance program, and that the Colorado Veterinary Medical Association and even the state of Colorado chose to provide some of the dues that veterinarians paid to put together towards a peer assistance. And there are some other states that do similar things. But when I was asking people, veterinarians and technicians and people about that, nobody knows what it is. they don't even realize that at the time they were putting into the funds. I think now the funds have accumulated, and so it kind of maybe is perpetual. And I saw Ted shaking his head, so I'm on the right path. But the point here is that very few veterinary professionals, let's even single out veterinarians, realize that there could be within their state a peer assistance program. So that's usually what I find. And to be perfectly honest, we could probably go on to the American Veterinary Medical Association, and they used to have a page that showed what states do provide. And you'd be surprised that a number of states do provide that kind of a support. And see, advocacy. And so, you know, I think this is where we have a problem. How many people would ever look under advocacy or peer assistance or anything like that? I don't think we properly name this stuff, to be perfectly honest. So I'm gonna flip gears on us a little bit. So I'm gonna ask just a general question about an employee assistance program. So within your work, regardless of where you work, some of you work in corporate places, some of you work in veterinary hospitals, do you or are you have access to an employee assistance program, an EAP? So when I started learning about all this peer assistance and started attending all of these wellness programs, even when I was doing the VSPN is when I learned about employee assistance programs. But less than 13% of those people in the VHMA had an EAP, less than 13%. Now, and I'm even going to say that's less than that within veterinary hospitals, just because that was probably a skewed sampling, right? But what I'm seeing here, and this is so exciting, is that a larger percentage of you on this call have access to an employee assistance program. So Becky, tell us about your EAP, and then we're going to open it up to some questions about EAPs, okay?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's the same program that I put myself through with a executive coach. I now have opened up to my entire staff. They have access to a coach as well as a psychotherapist whenever they need it. We do have a wellness team. We have a wellness coordinator. So that person is basically in charge of, we do just like fun challenges, but we're constantly talking about meditation and movement and how we eat and bringing healthy snacks in. But then we are doing, other things about mental health wellness. And then when we really, when a person really might need some extra help, we have that at in our toolbox to have a executive coach and a psychotherapist available to us. So they're on our team, basically. I contract with them to be with us 24/7. You know, recently we've had a couple situations, and it was just so great for me as the owner to say, I don't have to solve this. I have somebody on my team who knows how to handle this, and bring them in and help mentor and help that person in ways that I couldn't.
And I haven't used ours that we have through Nationwide, but when COVID hit, Nationwide reminded all of us, 30,000 employees, that we did have access to that. And if we had any issues because of COVID, we could utilize that service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's what even our EAP series talks about. So when we put that together, we collated and reached out to people who are practice managers, technicians, team members that have used it. What was their experience? And what we found is that as a practice manager or someone who's funding that program, you need to constantly, and think about turnover too within practices, remind your team it's available for all sorts of things. It's available for what we learned, individual hospitals can create it. You can purchase different packages. They're not that expensive, but even from the basics, you know, it can help to cover and help people manage money. It could help people going through a divorce. It can help people who have a child that maybe is ill, or how many of us now have elderly parents, right? You know, we have all of these things in our life that causes us not just as, within our work setting, which is stressful enough, but now we also have all of these things in our life that can increase that stress and put those burdens on us. And to be honest, we just don't have the coping skills all the time. So thank you so much for sitting with us and continuing to have this conversation. I appreciate it. And I even see some people like leaning in when we're talking about some stuff and leaning back. So I can see there's interest in other ways. I see that there's quite a bit of chats going on. Yes, so Heidi's talking about using a coach and what does that cost? And again, even some coaches services are covered within an EAP, surprisingly enough. Coaching can vary. Oh my gosh, coaching services can vary. I'm in a coaching group right now, and some of those folks will say what they're charging and how they got different packages. And so I'm just going to say that it's all over the board, all over the place, and all sorts of different programs that you can tap into. But what I will put together, Heidi, is maybe a couple links that help people understand what kind of coaching is available. Like, I'm a certified career coach. I can talk business and how to build a business and how to build your career and how to be a professional till the cows come home. Don't even get me started on that. We'll be here for hours. But there's life coaches. Becky, tell us some about maybe some of the services. I think you used a life coach, possibly.
I use a life coach, and I continue to use a life coach. And then kind of what's developed out of that is we started our own coaching group just of veterinarians and veterinary teams, just to have like-minded people in there. What I would also add to that is ask your employers. So if they don't already have something set up and you decide to find one, ask them if they'll help fund it. I'll talk about this in one of my talks, but it behooves them to have you at your best. It increases your productivity, and sometimes numbers talk. And so for a very small financial input from them, or maybe they pay half or whatever, it's going to make their bottom line go up, which as an employer, I'm happy to do that. And that's why I do it for my own staff, because I know what happens to the productivity when we're healthy like this. So I use a life coach, and I've been, this is my third year. And the way I think of life coaching is, at some point we've all had a coach in our life, whether it's been parents, teachers. I was an athlete, an actual coach, went to vet school, had mentors. And all of a sudden I got into the real world and kind of lost all that. Didn't have a great mentorship where I was, didn't have somebody standing side by side, or a group of confidants that I could go to. And life coaching just really resonated with me. Just the term, like, I needed a coach for my life to get back on track. And I still utilize them, because although most of the time I'm great, there are times when I need, an oil change. And so that's what they're there for.
Yeah.
The top Fortune 500s, mega CEOs of large companies all have executive coaches. Like, they don't get there on their own. They have somebody supporting them and helping them. And then I love what Rebecca said too. Coaches need coaches. So even, the coaches that I'm familiar with, they too have coaches, because we're always growing, always doing better, always learning, always supporting. So you never stop.
I'm in a coaching group right now, and they're the ones that they didn't push me, but they've been the ones supporting me the last 2 months in creating this program. I mean, it's so amazing. Mental health conversations during team meetings. Let's talk about that, right? Or not just even during team meetings. How can we make these conversations about having a coach and going to a therapist, and I don't need to know the dirt about what's going on. I just want to be able to support you in you seeking help. Be open to and help your team be able to say, I'm seeing this behavioral change. If there's something you want to talk to me about, I'm available to you. It's not talking about the person. It's not talking about the event. It's not talking about any of those things. It's talking about a behavioral change. I'm seeing that you're coming in later. What's going on? This comes back to the emotional intelligence piece and being able to communicate and self-awareness. I mean, it's a complex thing, but wouldn't it be wonderful if our team members had the wherewithal and were able to say to another team member, I'm seeing some changes and I'm concerned. If you want to talk about it, I'm here for you. Does anybody have any ideas of how can we have that conversation, or when would it be appropriate to start having that kind of conversation with our teams? I'm concerned.
You know, Rebecca, that's where we started. You know, I went through my stuff, but then I realized, okay, how am I going to get this to my teams? We started with some simple lunch and learn. So we started speaking the same language, so that, and giving each other permission. You have permission when I'm off to ask if I'm okay. Do I need help? Can I do something for you? And it made a world of difference by just knowing that maybe, you know, one of our staff members gets really hangry. She's just in a bad mood because she needs a Kit Kat bar. I mean, that's it. That's all it is. But then there are times when something's really up and we really know our team member is suffering, and we've given each other permission to say, hey, are you okay? Do something. Can you step out? And it just started with really just bringing in some simple verbiage and having that conversation. Yeah, those are hard conversations, but as a leader, we have to be having those conversations. And the leader may not be the practice owner. The leader may not be the veterinarian, but there's somebody on your team that can lead that conversation and arrange for it to happen.
Or bring in a coach or a consultant or somebody else to help with that.
Exactly.
And open up those conversations.
Yeah, we brought in the coach and the people who know how to give those talks. I wasn't at the time when we started. That was not me. I brought in the people who knew how to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think if I can chime in a little bit here, my last role in practice was as like a L&D or education development coordinator. So I had to take all of those like growth and development courses to figure that out about me. And once I was able to identify those, it was kind of putting that into action with our teams. Like, okay, so this is how you self-identify. We'd have a bulletin board, or we'd send out like an email blast. And how, because there's so many of us that in this field, how are we auditory people? Some are, but mostly we have to get experientially involved. Otherwise it doesn't sink in. So how can we do that in a multimodal approach? You got to hit it from all angles. But having that one person that's that catalyst for change is really, you know, you need that megaphone that then enables other people, gives them like, oh, well, she did it or he did it, and it's okay. But you also have to have that conversation with your leadership teams, your management groups and stuff, because if they're not behind it, it doesn't go anywhere. So you have to have those multi-level conversations with the team, with management and beyond, to make sure everyone's on the same page and the dialogue flows so it doesn't get dammed up in any direction. And it's a process. You have to be patient with yourself and with each other.
You know, that's why I started One Life. So One Life Connected basically creates a space that gives people permission to find their unique path to sustainability. And what it does is it doesn't tell them what to do. And I think that's one of the key things, not telling people what to do. Creating a space that allows them to find their own solution, but giving them ideas. So it gives them a framework. It gives them language, as Becky mentioned, right? So when you have language, it's easy to talk to. So I use balloons and sinkers, which many of you may know about my message, right? And so they can say, I'm filling a balloon right now, or I'm having a sinking moment. I have brown gauze moments. So I have a video that talks about the time where I lost my crap because I didn't have brown gauze in the hospital. And there's ways to engage with each other. Like they watch the video and they're like, oh my God, I did that. like I'm normal that I did that. And then you can engage, like, how do we want to support each other through these moments? You know, we can't like hit people, and we can't throw things. Yes. But what can we do to be available? I use imagery cards a lot because we can answer questions through pictures, because we think in images. We don't think in words, and talking about a picture is less vulnerable than talking about ourselves. You know, you put the pictures out to the team and you say, all right, everybody, I want you to pick a picture about how you feel about using this new record keeping system today. And people are picking, like, you know, an elephant all by itself in the middle of a field. Like, I feel like I'm the elephant in the room about to walk into this horrible day because it's going to be crazy, you know, and I don't know what to do, whatever. But it allows them to kind of open up the conversation. And what I've found from, you know, my many years in corporate practice, and then also outside working with thousands of veterinarians and their teams, is we can't tell them what to do. We can only provide them the resources and the space. But as leaders, we can make that space something that seems available, or we can make that space seem something that's inaccessible. And that's where we grow and we focus. And so we can't own it though. We cannot own it. And some people are just not ready, or you don't have the capacity. And that's why I like what Becky does and bringing in professionals that are in that space. And even when I life coach with people, most of the people I life coach have therapists too. And I'll say, hey, we just unpackaged something that I think you need to bring to your therapist. Like, we'll keep talking about the career stuff and the life stuff that's associated with vet med, but that's something that you need to take to your therapist and talk about. And, you know, I tell people I've had a psychiatrist. I don't care what people say about it. You know, I mean, I work with somebody in that space, and, you know, being open about it is great, but I never want to tell people everybody has to have a therapist, or everybody has to do this, or everybody should drink more water, or everybody should exercise, or everybody should meditate, or everybody, you know, it's what you need. And so having the framework to work from, I think, is valuable.
Let's talk buck naked vulnerability. Yes. Three-dimensional imperfection is the experience we call life. If we look beyond the imperfection, we see a spirit. All things in nature have imperfection. There are no perfect straight lines. Only in man do we find the thought of perfection. Only through illusion do we see man's interpretation of perfection. Perfection is not for this experience, but for the time after this. So while we are searching and trying to achieve that which we believe to be perfect, see beyond the illusion of imperfection, see the spirit. And that was written by my father some years ago. Isn't that lovely?
Powerful.
Yeah. Oh, like I said, he's still with me in so many ways. All right, but there are pros and cons to perfectionism. The pros is that attention to detail, organization, polished product, awesome. Now, some of the cons is that we lose sight of the objective, moving painstakingly slow, right? And that's definitely not where I live. I'm more of get things done, let's shoot it, aim at it, make adjustments, right? And some unrealistic goals as cons of perfectionism. Coming back to this idea of, rather than striving for perfection in all things, foster a working environment where faultlessness is not the driving mentality. And Dr. Marcy Kirk and I first gave this program at the Veterinary Wellbeing Summit, and we actually used it as a 2-hour program, and we had some in-depth conversations. We had people from all different settings, universities, hospitals, technician programs. It was quite amazing. So even within your veterinary hospitals or within your organization, how can we talk about vulnerability, trust, and bringing it to the table, similar to the conversation of destigmatization. So here we move into this idea of vulnerability. So people don't usually think of the workplace as an environment for demonstrating vulnerability. While professionalism is a necessary part of business, some surprising benefits result from leaders and team members allowing vulnerability to enter the workplace. And this was from The Benefits of Vulnerability in the Office, an article that I had read at that time. But it's from a woman's website, Your Courageous Life. So when we started talking about vulnerability within veterinary teams, what I found is most people saw it as somebody being too emotional. Maybe that if they were being vulnerable, they felt like that was a weakness, and that it's oftentimes linked with negativity. But vulnerability sounds like truth and feels like courage. Truth and courage aren't always comfortable, but they are never weaknesses. And that's from Brené Brown, another incredible video. When we look at vulnerability, it is quite the opposite is true. It is a show of courage. And it's helping our team members and leaders understand this piece of vulnerability. Vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. Another comment from Brené Brown. But the benefits of vulnerability are opportunities for speaking your mind and having courageous conversations, which was kind of the topic that we talked about yesterday. The ability to bring up new ideas when people can be invulnerable and not always squished with, oh, we tried that before, it didn't work. Well, that was before, we are not the same team we were physically, emotionally, spiritually as we were last year. Plus we've had turnover. So maybe this is a good time to try it again. Let's offer that in a space of vulnerability. Benefits of vulnerability include improving motivation. It's like, I have been given this safety net to try something new. Maybe even it could be around some kind of a new drug combination or a cocktail or something, right? Or maybe some of your team members have gone to a conference and they are just charged up to try something. And so are we giving them that space to grow and to be vulnerable and try something new? Benefit is that it does boost teamwork. It shows connection and it allows for connection. And it can even embrace the expression of passion. So there is strength of vulnerability in words. Vulnerability is scary but pure. In it, we can find bravery. Isn't that amazing? We think being vulnerable is this shell. I'm cracking open this shell and I'm exposing everything for me. And in that is huge amounts of bravery. This is what we talked about in our destigmatization piece. And it is the #1 trust building behavior that we can share. Telling someone, I need help. I've decided and I've gathered up, I have tried everything in my wheelhouse, everything within my scope of coping skills. Try to say that a few times. And I need help. Oh, hallelujah. You know what, guys? Because every single one of us in Living Well has a huge support system, and they want to be able to help you. They want to be able to offer you support. They want to be able to offer you resources. I need help helping our team members in all senses of the word. I need help calculating this medication. I need help in restraining this dog. I need help in tackling some of the things I'm dealing with personally. I need help. Very strong, powerful words. Again, people see them as weaknesses. No, one of the most trust-building behaviors, one of the best things we can ever do in our life is say, I need help. And then embracing it, because you have so many people in your world that want to support you. Team members embracing vulnerability and our trusted will. This is what's going to happen on the other side of this. When we start having this conversation about trust, yes, we can trust each other. We're moving the needle. We weren't such a trusting team, but we're having conversations about it. We're training. We're doing all of these protocols and processes that are building our trust. Yes. And then moving into these ideas of let's be more vulnerable together. Let's say I need help. Let's build that training, build those opportunities for trust, and build those opportunities for helping and supporting each other. So people that are doing this will admit weaknesses, mistakes, right? They're going to ask for help. They're going to apologize. We talked about apologies yesterday. They're going to take risks in offering feedback. Oh my gosh, because we are so terrible bad. Giving and receiving feedback, people. Yeah, sometimes it hurts. Sometimes I'm like, oh boy, I know somebody's just giving me some feedback. All right, I'm ready. Great, so I'll open up the email at that point in time. But teams that trust each other will give proper, appropriate feedback. They'll be more innovative. They'll step into courageous conversations more often, and they'll feel comfortable in expressing their needs. All of these things we've talked about. We can move the needle on this, folks. We can help our teams be better at this.